Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at 10 games here on Wednesday night in the NBA. In this one, we're taking a look at the Grizzlies. They're hosting the Clippers. Ja Morant is back in the lineup for those Grizzlies. Also got another game video up for you and our player props, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Also head to thelines.com. That's the site where we put up all this great content for you guys and more. And we also have that odds finder tool up there. That's what you can use to make sure you're shopping those lines, getting the best juice back on all these bets you're making in the NBA this season. Nate, let's run through this 10-game slate and then jump into our game here, the Grizz and Clips.
Yeah, Bucks are minus 12 at Indy. We'll see how they play this one. They have a back-to-back at home against the Celtics tomorrow. Mavs are plus 4 at the Sixers. We'll see if Joel Embiid returns after missing that MVP showdown. The Rockets are plus 11 at the Nets. The Heat plus 5 at Knicks. Pretty crucial game for seeding there. But Miami, still no injury report to be found. Jazz minus 6 at Spurs. Lakers are minus 2.5 at the Bulls after losing at home to those Bulls. Pistons plus 11 at Thunder. The Clips right now are plus 4 at Memphis. The total's been bet up 6 points from 227 to 233. The other game we break down, Kevin Durant and the Suns now minus 5 at home against the Wolves. He's expected to play. And then the tanking Blazers are plus 14 at home against the Kings. So this is the old home and home, right? The Clippers are going to play them again in 2 nights. Take that for what you will, but I know what to think about the Grizzlies right now. The Clips are a bit more of a jury's still out. They made one move, Ty Lue, that some say was just like an obvious overdue move, which is bench Marcus Morris. We trashed that starting lineup that he threw out there in the previous game. And Nick Batum really helped their offense. Probably some unreasonable variance that they had 41 assists and went 20 for 40 from 3 to beat the Bulls, who are on a back-to-back. Memphis is also on a back-to-back here, though, for what that's worth. But Memphis is also at home, and it's a back-to-back at home, and they've won 12 straight home games, outscoring teams by 14. 122 points per game, holding teams to 12 threes. They're not going to give up much in the paint, as we know. You look at their last 9 home games, 8th in defensive rating, 8th in paint points, 4th in points off turnovers, and they're guarding the three-point line as well. You look at their back-to-back stuff, and they do allow a few more points and a few more threes, but their scoring also dips. So they've actually gone under pretty consistently in these back-to-back situations. I don't know if you want to read too much into their recent offensive explosions with Ja out there, because they're going up against Houston in 2 of those, or one without him. And then they played at a 108 pace last night without Ja against Orlando, but still went under this total. I don't know how to feel about the total necessarily now that it's been bet up so much. I actually think maybe it's an opportunity to tease it higher and take the under at this point. The Clippers, their offense is not very trustworthy without Paul George, and Kawhi. His last 5 against Memphis has been meh by his standards. It's a 119 offensive rating. He's minus 14 in those games. They had lost 5 straight against the Grizz without Kawhi. They did then just win an extremely high scoring game at LAC, which is another reason that we're seeing this total be bet up so much, right? But without Paul George, the Clippers on the road, since the All-Star break, they are 1-3. The win is at Portland, so that doesn't even really count. And in that span, giving up the 10th most paint points, the 2nd most points off turnovers, which is death against Memphis. They're giving up 120 points per game. They're also giving up the 4th most free throws and the 9th most offensive rebounds. The one thing they're doing is limiting 3-pointers, and that's not Memphis's game, right? Especially with Ja out there, they're going to be attacking. So I like the Grizz here at just minus 4. I'm not really buying that the Clippers are completely on track just because they got that one game. Things were looking pretty ugly for them without PG, and I just think Memphis is hitting their stride now with Ja back in the lineup.
Yeah, that game versus the Bulls was for sure an anomaly. Let's be super clear about that. That moving forward, I don't know if you want to rely on Nick Batum going 8 for 10 from three. I don't think you want to do that. That's the entirety of his points that he scored. God bless him, Viva la France and all that, but like that ain't gonna keep happening. So Eric Gordon, maybe that's more likely to keep happening. I mean, he had 28 minutes, and he and Batum are going to probably continue to get 55 combined minutes between Gordon and Batum. It seems like they're coming in. You saw a bit more Bones Highland as well in that last game. And I mean, they needed all 13 of his points as well. I mean, not necessarily needed them, but I think they wanted to see what he could do. He got 23 minutes versus the 16 that he's been averaging since he came to the team. But yeah, that's not what you want to rely on. Like I said, I mean, Eric Gordon, like maybe you can rely on that a bit more. A 5 for 9 from three, I'm not going to rely on. But I think the overarching minutes that he gives you, the overarching benefits of having Eric Gordon on the floor, it's almost like we saw that happening before Russ came and then just took all those minutes from Terrence Mann and Eric Gordon when they were playing super well together. Now they're relying on Russ as well. He's still getting those minutes, and that'll keep happening tonight. But getting away from the Clippers, I'm just trying to make the point here that who the hell knows the 3 games that they played since Paul G, I guess that works. Paul George went out. It's just weirdness. There's no consistency to what we're seeing. Like you said, the lineup changes. Mook's pretty much benched at this point. He's out with PG. So we don't, and Norman Powell's questionable. So like we're probably going to get a lot of the same guys that we just saw in the Chicago game. But this Memphis team is a lot different. And if Ja's playing in this one, 4.5, I love it. I was hitting it before, honestly, Ja got out there. The Bulls were in a weird, wonky game. Like we said, I thought we were going to be able to see more from them, and they just didn't have it that game on the second leg of that back-to-back. But this Memphis team, I'm not worried about on the second leg because Ja sat for this reason. Like they didn't really need him against Orlando. They almost blew it, but they had a 20-point lead at one point in that game, which is never safe in the NBA anymore, as we saw with those Warriors last night. But with Ja in this one, I mean, look, last season they were 20-5 without him. This season 11-8. It's not the same necessarily. The offensive rating, they still need him. I'm not necessarily impressed by the 7-game win streak because of the teams that they beat and the Lucaless Mavs and things like that. The Warriors on the road are the Pistons we've established, so that doesn't really count either. I think that for Memphis, it's not necessarily impressive what they've done in the last 7 games, although they needed them and they've firmly put themselves back in second place. So I want to give them enough flowers to make clear, they're the second best team in the West right now. But it's been a lot of offense and a little bit less defense than, we've been expecting. They've been guarding the perimeter well. They've been guarding, even 2-pointers decently well. But it feels like teams just, we're kind of missing against them, to be honest, and not really going down low as much, but getting a lot of points off of offensive rebounds, second chance points. I was thinking about Zubac tonight because of the fact that he's got some lower props because of the fact that he's played really poorly against Memphis. And historically, Memphis has been incredible at guarding centers. But in the last 15 games, since, Steven Adams went down a little bit before that, they're bad. They're one of the worst teams at guarding centers. They're giving up a ton of second chance points. They've gone all the way down from being the 4th best team at limiting points in the paint to 13th. So if Zoo gets the minutes, I think he can have his way with Xavier Tillman, to be honest. Even when Jaren Jackson Jr. is out there right now with Xavier Tillman, that 2-man lineup is allowing 119 defensive rating when they're on the floor together. So there's probably an opportunity for some points in general. That's why it got bet up so quickly, as people were like, well, if Ja plays at all, this game's going over the 227 that it originally was at. And I would buy that, but at the same time, I'm just way more comfortable with this Memphis team when Ja's in there, and I think he's right now, right, mentally and all that kind of stuff. He's put everything behind him. I just trust them so much more right now as a team that has been streaking versus this Clippers team that they looked good against the Bulls and Kawhi looked good against the Thunder, but I'm still not putting quite as much stock in those games against as much as the second best team in the West with this Grizzlies squad.
You said Norm Powell's upgraded to questionable tonight. That's actually big news. That makes me reverse my take on the total. Then I will take the over if Norman Powell is playing. That will fix a lot of what's wrong with the Clippers offense, mainly Russell Westbrook trying to score the basketball and not just be a playmaker. Norm was huge for this team before he went down with kind of a mysterious injury. I think he's missed 12 straight. So if they get him back in there, I think that'll help the pace. I mean, you've already looked at these teams playing at 102.6 in their last 3 meetings. Memphis scoring 129 in those games. They will continue to get theirs down low. As I said, all these road struggles from the Clippers just not even bringing their defense. They're 23-14 to the over on the road, 11-6 as road dogs, and also go over at 6.5 points per game when they have a rest advantage. You look at these 4 road games recently. What the 2 times they played an elite offense at Denver and Sac, those games totaled over 255. So, I mean, there's definitely an opportunity for Memphis to drag this over on their own, and for the Clips to just like let go of the rope and let them score 135, but then, get their own, because you got guys like Powell and Bones Highland who are just buckets off the bench. So I do like the over if you can find out if Norman Powell's actually going to play. Obviously, this organization is not the most trustworthy when it comes to the injury report, but we shall see.
Stay on it, man. I mean, I've been racking my brain since last night when I was looking at all these things and trying to find some correlation, some stat, whatever. And it's like the end of the season, and it's just 10 games too long, because it's just so much harder to figure out what's going on in these ones. And not even just because it's like, who's going to try? It's like, who's going to play? I mean, that everything was ruined the other day, right? With that Joel Embiid random out, and then Luka comes back, even though, because he has his technical rescinded. Like, you just got to stay up on the news as you're making these bets and stay ahead of things as much as you can. But also, there's nothing wrong with waiting to know who's going to actually play in these games, right? So, for example, just real quick, Tyrese Maxey and the 76ers the other day, he was out. We didn't know Joel was out. Then all of a sudden, Joel's in. The books put out the Maxey stats, and they try to get them back real quick. But if you can get to those Maxey props before they take them down once the Embiid news comes out, right? If you can stay on top of those type of injury alerts, maybe follow Woj and Shams and all that kind of stuff, then it's going to be super helpful down the stretch here in the NBA. So that's all the time we have for you in this one. But make sure to like and subscribe to the page. Continue to follow along. Check out the other couple videos we have up for you today, including those player props. And until we see you next, happy betting.